another diploma track, and we're going to call this the Standard Diploma Pathway 2. And what this would be is a diploma pathway for students on an IEP, and in an IEP team meeting, they would determine whether this is the correct pathway for them to go towards a standard diploma. If a student doesn't get a standard diploma, the only other option is called a certificate of completion. Although a certificate of completion is nice, it's not something you can use to get into the military, to get into college, to get financial aid for college. When you have a job application, one of the first questions is, are you a high school graduate? It really is a barrier to getting employment. Where a standard diploma is going to allow you to apply for federal financial aid for college. It's going to allow a student to check that box to get into an interview. So this diploma track, this would be a non-A through G diploma track. Obviously, we'd like students who are willing and able to do the A through G diploma track. This would be an option for them that has high school credit. So it's not quite the same rigor as an A through G. If you remember, A through G is a college prep class. It's approved through the College Board as a college prep class. This would still meet state standards. This would still lead the kids to a high school diploma. The IEP team can determine whether, if this is the appropriate placement, that a special ed teacher could teach those core classes. So this is opportunity for kids. It gives us numerous pathways to a diploma, and diploma gives kids numerous pathways to college, career, military, and that's what we want. So I'm going to pass this out to you now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
So you're going to see in the news, the state came up with a diploma plan for all. That became state law 2 years ago. Unfortunately, when they did that, they didn't coordinate with the California Department of Education. And the California Department of Education 3 weeks ago came out with a ruling that this wasn't going to meet the state guidelines for graduation. So what we are going to do, because it is the right thing to do, and I'll argue this to the end, is give kids an opportunity. We're going to bypass what they're calling the alternative diploma track. We're going to come up with, which is legal by law, the board can adopt a diploma track such as this. And I'm going to strongly encourage you to ask your questions. Please, please, please look for this on your next board agenda. This is the right thing to do for kids. This is going to give kids opportunities, again, for employment, for military, for college. So what you see before you is the 8-period day. This would be the same number of credits as the standard diploma. It would still count as a standard diploma. The only difference you're going to see is it's going to be called Pathway 2 on a transcript.
And next month, you will give a whole presentation on Pathway 2?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's
And
pretty...
I'll start with what can I
that's-
do to sell you this diploma track?
No, I think it's amazing. I mean, I don't think there's going to have to be much sale on it. I mean, it's amazing that we're doing this.
It's the right thing to do for kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Any questions from Mr. Jordan?
No, I'll call him later.
And I'd like to defer any time I may have remaining to the great Senator Ann Lyons from our ERMS department,
Okay.
who has a presentation for you. Yep.
That's my pleasure. Yes, thank you. I'm Ann Lyons, school counselor for the ERMS program and licensed marriage and family therapist. I'll be retiring this June, and I'm here to say thank you to the Center District tonight for allowing me to grow and develop my skills as a counselor during these years. Since hiring me in 2004, it seems a long time ago now. And I'm also here to speak briefly about the importance of mental health services to our students. So this first slide is a picture of my office in the annex where I see high school students. And the rest of the slides are of the Care Center on the Spinelli campus. I'm going to be talking about that. As you can see, it's a wonderful healing place for children to be. In 2011, California put mental health services back in the schools with the creation of ERMS, the Educationally Related Mental Health Services. I immediately knew I wanted to provide services for our students with special needs who also had very significant social and emotional needs and were struggling at school. With the district's blessing, I fulfilled a long-held dream and began classes to become a licensed therapist. The state provided use it or lose it funds to build the ERMS program, and Scott Lair had the vision and the belief to allow me the freedom to create the Care Center, a therapeutic environment that gives children time and space to heal through play, through art, and through support groups. Tracy Daubenmeier was instrumental in so many ways in this process from the very beginning, and she was invaluable as the ERMS program grew, and grew to include most of our school psychologists and most of the behavioral team. Now Mike Jordan supportively directs ERMS services on each of our campuses, and the need is just growing and growing. So I've worked in education a long time, and I see that funding for programs ebbs and flows. For that reason, counseling is always somewhat vulnerable. It's hard to measure what was prevented from happening, but I have valid reason to believe that through school-based services, school failure, substance abuse, violent conflict, and even suicides have been prevented from counseling being available to some of our students. It's my hope that the center community will always find ways to provide counselors and therapeutic environments, especially to our students who may not be able to access, for whatever reason, community-based supports. Not every student is going to be driven to a counselor's office for outside services. And school services are sometimes our very best option for a multitude of reasons. And for support groups, they're right here with their peers, which means a lot. I went into this whole field wanting to help children. To help children and youth. But as is always the case, the staff, the children, the youth, and the families have helped me. The courage, kindness, intelligence, creativity, and heart that I've seen from them have shown me that the problems we face, no matter how severe, and ERMS program serves the people with the most severe problems, top of the pyramid. Those problems are just distractions from that inner truth, which lies deep within every child, and I believe every person. We are all of us lovable human beings with infinite value and worth, and we all possess a unique light to shine in this world. And sometimes our truth gets buried and hidden by the pain that we experience. This quote from Matt Haig, a young author who himself experienced severe mental illness, explains, mental health problems do not define who you are. They are something that you experience. We walk in the rain, we feel the rain, but we ourselves are not the rain. Here at Center, we always want to be there with mental health providers to remind our students of who they truly are and to walk alongside of them during their personal storms so they can find a way to bravely shine their light. Now and in the future, they are our light. Thank you, Center Joint Unified School District, for helping me to find my light. And thank you for all that you've given to me. And thank you for all that you've given to the students that we all serve. And thank you for the memories. These were all artwork created by the students and unprompted by me, just things that they created from their heart.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. Is there any questions for Ms. Lyons? We're going to miss you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, have you really considered this? Because, you know,
There-
I've got some personal stake.
I will always love the Center District, and I see my friend Cynthia Walker up here, who retired and came back. So.
Never say never. Thank you, Ann. Facilities update, Mr. Putnam?
Good evening, board and guests. Center is moving along nicely with our two construction projects, one being Rex Fortune Elementary School and the other being our CTE project that's taking place right behind us. I had the privilege last week during facilities committee meeting to give a very personal tour to President Pope to go through the buildings and show her the progress that is coming along. They will be exciting spaces for the students when we have those opened up in the fall for them to be going full bore ahead. We have also started the renovation part of the theater. Since all the remediation is done, we've actually started the construction work to put it back together again. The good news that we did get was the wood flooring for the stage is something that is in stock. So we are not having to wait 6 months or whatever to get that material. So that is going to help move that process along nicely for us. So now it's just basically us surviving all these atmospheric rivers. We had a little scare over at Spinelli yesterday, had a couple trees that the ground is becoming unstable, so unfortunately we are going to have to remove those trees for the safety of students and staff. But we'll figure out something else to take care of that, and then it's just been the maintenance and grounds crews going around taking care of any roof leaks and other items that keep coming up, because it's not so much the wind or the rain, it's the wind that really ends up causing a lot of issues for us.
We had wind.
Yes, we did. And that is all that we have.
Any questions for Mr. Putnam? No. Thank you, Mr. Putnam.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. I have a few cards. Mr. Barker? Go to the podium, please.
Good afternoon. I'm kind of at a loss as to the procedure that goes on here. Last February, you voted to not coming back next year. That wasn't a problem. That in itself wasn't a problem. The problem was that several of the people that came to speak on my behalf weren't able to get in because, as you know, last month was all the students were here for making up their hours. So there were no agendas at the door. There was nothing. So no one even knew that my job was on the docket for you to vote. Okay. The other problem I had was that earlier in the year, the 27th of January to be exact, I was asked to resign based on you guys are going to have to do my contract for next year. And my only question was, how on the January was a February decision already made? And so that I'm at a loss. The board meeting that I observed, if you don't have any context, and I didn't have any context, the first board meeting I came to, it was very contentious. You know, you had some problems with some other people. that have since resigned. Yeah, found out later that that was the problem, that this person had some other issues, but I didn't know that. You know, so coming in blind, and a couple of the schools that I have actually talked to me about it later. They were like, man, they were really rude to this person. They were really shutting this person down, whatever. You know, and I was just trying to say, I don't know. All I know is I probably have to go back and watch a whole bunch of board meetings before I make that decision. I think you should too, okay? Be that as it may, the main problem I have is that there was no way that I knew I was on the agenda for that night, okay, at all. And there were no agendas available anymore because it was so full, and they were already gone. And I'm not blaming anybody for that. I'm just saying it wasn't available. It wasn't until I was able to go online and get the agenda that I found out I was on the agenda. And then I received a letter from the board that was all signed that everybody voted to not approve my contract for next year. I'm only concerned with the fact that I was already told about this in January, and I was asked to give my resignation on a Friday, or let them know one day late, Monday. Let them know on Monday what my reply was. And of course, I didn't reply that I wanted to resign. So here we are. So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how we're going to go forward from this. You know, I'm just kind of concerned about that aspect. Okay, and several parents that didn't show up tonight because their sprinkler service is done deal. Okay, so I'm just here to say, hey, I don't know what happened, I don't know why, and thank you.
I would like to make a little comment. Any personnel issues would have to go to Mr. Grimes. And so if you do have a concern of the process or a question, Mr. Grimes will be available to you. Just call his office and they will definitely schedule a meeting with him. Or if you would like to send him an email, that would be the other alternative. Unfortunately, the board is unable to talk about personnel issues. Okay, so that would be the avenue to go. Thank you, sir. Yes, and I appreciate you coming to the board meeting. Mr. Farrell, I have you coming talk about Rex Fortune.
Good evening, board members. I'm excited tonight to be able to come and announce that we have finally made our decision on a school mascot for Rex Fortune Elementary School. So during the month of February, we collected mascot names through a Google form, shared out to the community, the staff members at our site. We had lots of great ideas. There were over 50 submissions of names and ideas. So we took that initial list, we narrowed it down by comparing it to mascots that are similar or the same as mascots that are currently in our school district and comparing them to the surrounding districts. And so that kind of weeded a few of those out. And then we sat down and we talked about the remaining mascot names and ideas. And so as our district expands out into Roseville and the city of Roseville, we felt that it was important to connect with that rich history that Roseville has, particularly with the railroad history. And so we wanted a mascot that would represent that unique spirit of the area, plus the unique spirit of our STEAM school. So tonight, I'm pleased to announce that we are moving full steam ahead, pun intended, as the Rex Fortune Flyers. So we're working on a school logo currently, and once that's finalized and completed, we'll be sharing that out publicly and let know. So
Very
just
nice.
wanted to give an update, and we're excited to be home of the Flyers.
Go Flyers.
Right?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Next up would be Ms. Sammons and Mrs. Anderson. Would you like to come? She's right there.
So I'm Adriana Sammons, and we are from the Oak Hill Elementary School PTA.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm the event coordinator and volunteer coordinator, and we just had our pasta dinner. It was the first one back since COVID. I don't even remember when my kid was in kindergarten. It was phenomenal. We just want to say thank you so much. I know we had Nancy and Mr. Fallon there, and I know the rest of you, some of you were not feeling well, but we are so thankful for the support that we received, not only from the board, but just community members.
Oh, it's not.
Yes.
It wasn't.
Okay. All right. And we got a lot of support, and we were able to raise quite a bit of money to put back into the school to be able to refund some of the teachers for some of the things that they put into their classroom or field trips. So we just want to thank everybody for really showing up this year, because our events have been way bigger than we thought they were going to be. So thank you so much. We couldn't have done it without any of you. So we appreciate it and can't wait to see you at the next one. Oh, and our next one is going to be our field day. It is going to be a Saturday event on April 15th if you are free, or if any of you would like to volunteer. We would love your help, and it is a Get Active event. We'll have resources for sports. We will have the library out, so all things for students and families to get active together, but also something when they're out of school for activities to keep them busy. So we hope to see you guys there.
Very nice, thank you. And I'm sorry I missed the pasta day. I was sick.
That's okay.
I was pretty excited to
The
go.
pasta was yummy.
I understand. Yes, if the Lions did it, it would have been yummy.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other, excuse me, public comment? Nothing online? I do want to give a little shout out to some individuals that are here, and that's BSU, our Black Student Union. So thank you for coming. We appreciate that very much. And moving right along to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, removing item number 1?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. General consent.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. And I heard Mr. Mason's vote, so that's cool. Thank you, Mr. Mason. And before we go on, I'd like to thank Mr. Barassi for his efforts in getting the safety plans together. And submitting them all together, because that is a great help. So thank you for doing that. And then also a little shout out to Tammy Jabali, if you notice that she created items 18 through 23. And one of those would be the LCAP, which takes a lot of time to create. So I appreciate her efforts for this month's meeting. And then in regards to consent agenda number 1, approve adoption of minutes for January 18th, 2023, regular meeting. Do I have a motion to bring it to the floor for discussion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion on this item? Okay, I just want to say that we removed the item because it was requested to have the minutes revised. So I want to thank Carol Hunt for doing that. So just to make sure everybody's aware, we have the original minutes and then the revised minutes. So there is no action at the moment for this item. So do I have a motion for somebody to approve the minutes with a motion? Thank you, Carol.
A motion to approve it?
Which one do you approve, the original or the revised?
The revised.
The revised minutes. Do I have a second to approve the revised minutes from January 18th?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. General consent? Okay, Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Then moving right along to business item A. Business item A, resolution number 20/2223, opposition to the Aspire territory transfer petition and further requesting the Placer and Sacramento County Committees on School District Organization deny the petition. Do I have a motion to bring it to the floor for discussion?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lair, are you there?
I am here.
Hello, sir.
Yes, so I wanted to just take a moment. I know the board is very aware of the process. I know I appreciate a couple of you have been able to join us at some of the hearings. The board had requested we come back with a resolution to oppose the proposed transfer with the idea that if it's approved, it would then be sent to both county committees. At this point, I think the board is very aware, but just so the community would be aware, there's a portion in the top of our district that is in the, I wouldn't even call it the north. It's the north, we'll just call it straight north, where about 120 homes are requesting to be transferred into the Roseville High School District and Roseville Joint Roseville City School District. In that, the petitioner has requested that they be transferred to that. At this point, what we're asking the board is to consider the resolution to oppose that. And we do also have on the line our attorney and then our consultant, Shin Green, and David Soldani with us if the board were to have any further questions. So I'd turn that back to you, President Pope.
Thank you, sir. To my understanding, from the last date of the SCOE Sacramento County meeting, we had 120 days for the next decision or the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, my understanding was it would be no sooner than 120 days, possibly longer, depending on if there is any environmental studies that might need to be done. I'm seeing Mr. Green here nod too, so I'm speaking correctly. Yes, so we would not hear anything for at least 120. This resolution, if approved to oppose, we would send copies to both of the county committees so they were aware of our position going into it as the study continued.
Can you give some examples of some environmental issues?
I might have to turn to Mr. Shin Green on that one. I know one that was brought up. I'm not sure if it's a legitimate one, but Mr. Green, do you know any environmental ones that might?
There are no specific issues that I'm aware of exactly, but it could fall along the lines of things of traffic impacts as a result of revised travel patterns from the development to proposed school sites, and could also involve a myriad of other sort of similar impacts that may be caused by the change in flow and traffic patterns that would result from such a proposal.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments for the attorney or Mr. Lair? Okay, thank you. Is there any public comments? Nothing. Okay. Do we have any board discussion on this at all, Mr. Bruno? Mrs. Anderson, do you have any discussion? Mrs. Anderson? No. Mr. Ballin? No. Student representative? No. No, chair does not either. Do I have a motion to approve business item A? And please state your motion.
So moved.
Please state a motion. You could just read what business item A says, and that could be your motion.
I'm sorry, what?
You could just read what business item A says, and that could be your motion.
Just turn it into a motion, the way it is. The opposition to transfer petition and further requesting the Placer and Sacramento County Committees on School District Organization deny the petition.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, very good. General consent? An
Yes.
advisory vote? Thank you very much. Very good. Second reading, board policies, regulations, and exhibits. Are there any further questions regarding business item B? Is there any public comment, Ms. Carroll? No. I didn't, but thank you. Can we bring it to the floor for discussion?
I'll move to bring it to the floor.
And I appreciate that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there any questions regarding the? Okay, thank you. And we do not have any board comments, so do I have a motion to approve business item B, reading policies, regulations, and exhibits as a whole?
I will move to approve them as a block.
Very good, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. General consent? Advisory vote? Very good. Okay, moving on to business item C. First reading, policies, regulations, and exhibits. This is in regards to policy number 4118, 4119.1, 4219.1, 4319.2, 4218, and administrative regulation 4218. Do I have a motion to bring it to the floor for discussion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Well, thank you very much. Is there any other questions regarding these policies?
Ms. Pope, if I might jump in just to explain to the board, just for the public, the reason we brought these back, it was requested by one of our trustees to understand the reference to the Bremerton case. It was a Supreme Court case. I just wanted to point out, and I thank Mr. Grimes for his paragraph behind that explains the process, why when we get our samples from CSBA, anytime there's amendments to our policies, they reference Senate bills, Assembly bills, laws, Supreme Court cases that might change or alter the language in a policy. And so the only reason the Bremerton case was referenced is because it did have impacts, as you saw in your backup, on some potential employment related items. That's what these policies are related to, personnel matters. So I just wanted to clarify that. No change was done to the policies from last meeting.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Lair. And since that clarification, I'm going to re-ask, is there any public comments? And nothing? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve business item C as a final reading?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. General consent? Okay, advisory vote? Thank you, Mr. Mason. Moving on to first reading policies, regulations, and exhibit. This is in regards to policy 3515, campus security. Can I bring it to the floor for discussion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further questions regarding policy 3515, campus security? Okay, is there any public comment?
I have a point on this item. I just suggest at this point we pull it because this deals with legislation that directs that there be certain guidelines and documentation prepared, which is not expected to be completed until July of this year.
So what do you mean by pull? You mean table?
To read table, correct.
Ms. Pope, may I add?
Yes, please.
Mr. Ballin, I think I sent an email to you that will be addressed in a separate policy. This policy was only addressing, I think it's surveillance and locks as it related to that assembly bill. So the outline, the parameters that you're describing will come up at a later date probably in a different policy. So I just wanted to make that clarifying point with it.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so no need to table this item?
No.
Okay, very good. Do I have a motion to approve the final reading for business item D, policies, regulations, and exhibits?
I'll move.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Or, go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, general consent? Is that final or first reading? Final reading, yes. Yes, thank you. Advisory vote? Aye. Okay, thank you. Moving on to one other policy, board policy 7310, naming of facilities. Do I have a motion to bring this to the floor for discussion?
Also move.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Bruno, since you brought this forward, would you give a brief introduction?
This started with me wanting to expand our options for when we're naming school sites and other facilities to give us more leeway in that. Trustee Ballin also had some things that he wanted to incorporate into it. So he and I have been working together, and this is what we have so far.
Okay, very good. Mrs. Anderson, do you have any discussion on this policy?
Well, reading through it,
Can you tap on your mic, please?
I'm sorry. I kind of was puzzled reading through it because I couldn't figure out, we had one page from center, one page from city, and we ended up with 3 pages. I don't know how you guys did that. It was kind of interesting. It seemed a little wordy, to use Dill's word, to be honest. But I like what you put in it, and it ties everything up really well. Sometimes I worry that we say too much, and it really ties us too much to certain things. We have to be careful about that. But overall, I think it's a good policy.
Mr. Bruno, or Mr. Ballin, I'm sorry.
So, my version was essentially I looked at what other districts, not only in California but throughout the country, the language, and I took what I thought was the best of the best, and that's what I put in there with Trustee Bruno amending a few things.
Okay. Advisory comment?
I read it over the weekend. I asked some people about it, and they all seem to agree on the wording.
On the wording? Myself, I wanted all due respect, gentlemen, as I was wondering what the heck happened, as Mrs. Anderson stated. It went from a one-page policy to over a three-page policy. And I couldn't understand why the actual policy was rewritten when it was stated that we were going to use our policy and take some snippets of Sac City Unifieds. And plus, it is very wordy. And I just was kind of confused on why it was rewritten is basically it. And as Mrs. Anderson had stated, sometimes when you put specifics into a policy, then you are kind of limiting yourself into decisions in the future. So that's my comment. Do you have anything to add to Mr. Bruno?
Not a whole lot. I think we were making good progress on it. We've both had things going on and didn't get to devote as much time to it as we would have liked. So at this time, I'm going to move that we table this item probably for a couple months. I think we're far enough along that for the immediate needs, our current policy will suffice. And we just, I think, need some time to keep going back and forth and working your suggestions into it. Unfortunately, because of the nature of board work, only two of us can work on it, so.
True.
This is the only way we can get your feedback, so.
Can I add a friendly amendment to your motion, or to
Sure.
your table, to table your motion? A couple things is, I wouldn't be inclined to change the name of the policy. Changing the name of the policy does include going through CSBA. It's quite the process. There has to be a renumbering situation, and it does take time. Naming of facilities for 7310, I think the name of the policy itself is sufficient. The other caveat would be if we can keep it to a page and a half, is my thought, my opinion.
Okay, those will be goals for us.
But just my opinion.
Okay.
You've got others. So is there a second to table? I'll second to table this motion. And you know what, let's just go ahead and take a vote on the tabling. Trustee Bruno?
Aye.
Okay, Mrs.
Aye.
Anderson, thank you. Trustee Ballin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and advisory vote,
Aye.
please. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to.
So I'm sorry, Ms. Pope, just
Yes.
for my clarity, and Ms. Hunt, sorry, I feel like I'm just coming out of nowhere. When would you like us to bring this back? Would you like me to work with Mr. Trustee Bruno and Trustee Ballin, and then we will bring it back once we feel like we've met some of those parameters, or just looking for a little direction?
Thank you.
Is that fine?
I think we should just continue to work on it, and then when we feel we have a good one, we'll schedule it.
Yeah,
Oh.
I agree. I think with being a board member short, maybe the first of the next school year. 'cause
As
then
long
we
as
have-
that doesn't mean it keeps growing.
Yeah.
We're gonna work on it in the other direction.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Then I will go in a waiting pattern then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody, on that. We'll continue on to business item F, naming of career technical education, CTE facilities. Do I have a motion to bring it to the floor for discussion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballin. Mr. Ballin, you brought this forward. Did you give a brief introduction to this?
So in the initial stages of the CTE buildings being developed, it just occurred to me that we have a number of buildings in this district, as does other districts and other government entities, where they name in honor of people who were responsible or greatly contributed to the actual building or to the actual subject or type of work that that building encompasses. And in thinking about this, a person that I came to know came of mind, who I think was very much responsible, at least from a philosophical perspective of these CTE buildings being built. And with those thoughts, I thought it would be appropriate for the buildings to be named after, or at least one of the two buildings to be named after this particular individual who was greatly responsible for trades and vocational training and education in this district for many, many, many years. And so I suggested that we create move forward in creating the ability to name these buildings by such a person or persons that we deem appropriate.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? Okay. We're going to go to board discussion.
I'm confused as to what we're doing.
He did an introduction to the item, asked for public comment. Now we're going to discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Ballin, did you want to give further discussion on that? Or were you good with what you said?
Well, I'll expand further. So, an individual who is a member of this board for, I'm not sure how many years, 20-something years, by the name of Ray Bender. Mr. Bender and I, in my activities with the district over the years, had many discussions. And he and I were very much alike to think in terms of not every student is going to have the opportunity to go to college. And how can we best prepare them for their future? Thus, vocational and trade training and education was a subject that we spoke of often, and something that we felt that should be expanded upon in the district. If I'm not mistaken, and maybe Mr. Lair or board member Anderson could speak to this, but at one time we had a Cisco Academy here in the district that I believe Mr. This person I'm speaking of is by the name of Ray Bender, who was a member of this board for many years, that he was responsible for. And so I myself would like to basically put his name in the hat, nominate him, or whatever terminology we're going to use here, to recommend that the buildings and or one of the buildings, because it was brought to my attention that another building may be asked to be named after another individual, which I would have no qualms about either. So I guess that's it. I don't know if I say I nominate or I recommend or I suggest or
That's fine.
you know, I'm not prepared with his history in terms of what he contributed, but if we need to bring this back to for further discussion or continuance of any kind or tabling, I would be more than willing to speak with district staff and the Bender family on how he greatly contributed to this district.
Well, there's nothing to table because it's not an action item. It's just in discussion right now, so, but thank you. Thank you for your comments. Very good. Mrs. Anderson, I know you have some words to say.
I do. And I went back and pulled some information on Mr. Bender because I think he is so well deserving of this. And as Howard said, he was on the district board for over 20 years. He was also recognized by the Placer County School Boards Association and awarded the School Board Member of the Year for them. He was very much into vocational ed and technology and basically forced the district into technology. He brought Digital High School to the district, which brought teachers and students into computers and technology, and basically introduced them to it. He insisted on the groundwork being laid, the fiber optics being laid to bring the computer systems into the high school when the high school was first laid out. He was twice a delegate to the California School Boards Association. He was instrumental in getting the first bond passed, a $59 million bond, which brought us 3 schools. Or he was, here when we built 3 schools. The bond, I'm not sure, did the bond pay for North Country? Scott, are you still there?
I think it assisted in it, yes. I don't know if it paid for all of it, but it absolutely contributed.
Well, I think it was, all of them were matched with state funding, but.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, 3 of those, and he brought in 2 charter schools while he was here, or at least helped with those. All of that being matched with state money. And the Performing Arts Center, the classrooms at the high school, the computer labs. He was instrumental in bringing open court to the district, which was even before the state adopted the program. He was a big supporter of that. He was into bringing the health and services to the district. It's a mosquito, I'm sorry. Health services to the district, and really championed that program. At one time, we were almost ready to offer a medical assisting program. He set it all up so that the union, the head union guy in the state of California, or at least some of the head union people, were going to set up apprenticeships for our students, all paid for, but they had to have 18-year-olds. And so at the last minute, it fell apart because we didn't have enough 18-year-olds. But Ray went out and laid all the groundwork for that. He was 5 times board president. He was vocational training he was big on because he realized all kids weren't college bound, even though he was very high on making sure kids were ready for college and that they earned college credits in high school. He supported that program 100%. But he knew that other kids weren't going to college and that they needed to be also prepared for work, as well as the kids who were possibly going to need extra help and needed to have extra training in just workability. That was a program that he brought to the district and pushed for, to where those kids needed training in job applications and interviews and just maybe sweeping floors at McDonald's because they were specially challenged kids that need extra help. That was a grant program that was brought to the district. He worked the snack bar for over 10 years, and that's just not a Friday night job. He's there late Friday night when everybody else is out having pizza, cleaning the snack bar. 2 days, other days a week, he's out picking up supplies and stocking the snack bar and all of those extra jobs. He truly was dedicated to Center School District and the students of Center School District. If there was a tournament the kids didn't have the money to attend, a league fee they couldn't pay, he found a way that it was paid, and half the time they never even knew where it came from. Or if a kid needed shoes and Ray found out about it, he'd pay for them, and they would turn up somewhere and the kid didn't know where they came from. We had a student one time that didn't have a place to live. His parents wouldn't let him live at home, or he didn't have anywhere to go. He was living in a field, and the Benders took him in. And he lived with them for at least 2 years while he finished high school. I don't know that I have known anyone who was more dedicated to kids and the students of Center than they were. So I would be in full support, and I think it would be well-deserved to name at least half of the building, or the one building after Ray. And I know the other building's been mentioned to be named after Vern Bishop, who passed away as a teacher in the district and who also did a lot for the district and the students in the district. So that would be my thoughts on the idea. So I would appreciate it if the board would give that some consideration.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Anderson. Mr. Bruno.
Unfortunately, I did not know Mr. Bender. Oh, sorry. Unfortunately, I did not know Mr. Bender. And you guys all are aware of my general reluctance to name things after people. But frankly, from what you guys have said, it sounds very appropriate, especially since he was instrumental in laying the groundwork for what led to the CTE program. I would just ask, that we look for any reason that this might be controversial at all, but it doesn't sound like there is. And as far as Mr. Bishop goes, I can't object to that either.
My only comment is that both individuals have already had a ceremony of recognition and a facility or a building or a partial of a building named after them. And that's my only comment. Mr. Mason?
I wouldn't be opposed to having Mr. Bender be the name of the CTE buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Okay, what do you want to go from here? Did you want to put it as an agenda item in a couple months once we give it some thought, ponder on it, and
Well, I'm going to go back to whatever, if it was the last meeting, board meeting, or the one previous. So there will be, from my understanding, some form of a ceremony, dedication ceremony for when the buildings are, ribbon cutting, whatever you want to call it. So with that said, it would be appropriate that if that was to take place, that the naming of the building is already been decided on, and the appropriate placard or whatever it is that we are going to do is purchased and adhered to the building in time for such a ceremony. So I don't, there were different months that Superintendent Lair brought up. I think everything between May and September. So I have no objections to postponing further discussion or action item or whatever course the board would prefer to go. I'm fine with that as long as we make the timetable as it relates to the opening and dedication of the building. As my understanding is it will be open and ready for business for the next school year.
Hey, Carol, how long does it take to have those brass plaques made?
Well, Nancy, or Ms. Anderson, what we'll do is probably, honestly, the sooner, if the board wants to consider that next month, our plan would be to do the ceremony once, the ribbon cutting, right at the beginning of school when it resumes. So what's that, August 3rd this year, August 5th? So if the board would want to consider that next month, that gives us hopefully enough lead time to get whatever we need done. From there, I don't know, Ms. Hunt might have a better idea on some of the plaques. I know she helped me before.
Okay, I think next month would be better.
The timeline, but, things are hard right now, and it depends on what type of.
I was just assuming it would be like the regular plaques.
Standardized bronze.
it would probably be like a bronze plaque
Yeah.
of what,
Like the one we did for him on the snack bar.
yes, and the one we did for Vernon. And I think those took, at that time, a month. Okay, so we'll bring it back for future discussion when we talk about future business items.
Okay.
Can we bring it back in April?
We'll talk about that when we talk about future business items at the
Oh.
closing of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to move right along to business item G, instruction material adoption, grades K-10 through 5, FOSS Generation Science Curriculum. Do I have a motion to bring it to the floor for discussion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll sec-
Thank you, Mr. Ballin. Mr. Laird, do you want to give an overview?
Yeah, just basically, I think the background material shows and supports this, but really what's completing the cycle for our TK5. As the backup shares, we had it ready to go. COVID hit, we got derailed with that, and now we've piloted the materials. We've had them on display for folks to take a look at, and we've identified that the FOSS curriculum would be the one that we would be recommending to meet those standards and then move forward.
Well, thank you very much. Is there any public comment? Mrs. Hunt? Okay, very good. Board discussion, Trustee Bruno.
Seeing this agenda item, I did a little research online looking into this, and it generally receives positive comments, and the links that were provided in the board packet, it looked like pretty good material. So
I concur.
that was what I found.
Mrs. Anderson?
Sounds good.
Okay. Trustee Ballin?
I'm good.
Okay. Advisory?
Looks good.
And it looks good to me. So, do we have a motion to approve business item G, instructional material adoption, grades TK5, FOSS Next Generation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, general consent? Okay, advisory vote?
Aye.
Awesome, very good. Thank you very much. We'll move to business item H, English learner newcomer curriculum adoption, middle and high school. Do I have a motion to bring it to the floor for discussion?
Also move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Mr. Lair, would you like to give an overview?
Yeah, so as the material shares there, we have seen a significant increase in newcomer status individuals. Typically, those are individuals who really have zero English. And so this program is something we've identified that will help us fill that gap with our other ELD curriculum. I know our ELD teachers, English language development teachers, have really been striving to meet the need, and they've done a great job, but this will help them meet the needs of our students as they come forward.
Very good. Is there any public comment? Nothing, Mrs. Hunt? Okay. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Bruno?
No.
Mrs. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Ballin? Student representative? No. Board neither, or chair neither. Do I have a motion to approve business item H? I'll motion to approve business item H. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. General consent?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Advisory vote? Very good. Thank you very much. And then business item I, 2223, second interim report. And do I have a motion to bring this to the floor for discussion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Bruno. And the lovely Mrs. Coronado.
Hello.
Hello.
I've submitted to you the second interim report for approval, and that looks at the fiscal activity from July 1 through January 31st. It also looks at the budget and the projection through this current year and then 2 subsequent years. Oops. I'm crazy. All right, the district enrollment. I'm pleased to say that it is still going up. I follow Sacramento area housing sales, and the sales, the amount of time that they're on the market is longer, and the salary, the cost has come down a little bit, but they're still selling well. And our developer fees reflect that. We're taking in about $500,000 per month consistently, which is what we took in last year per month consistently. So we're not showing any slowing at all in our own area or the Sacramento area at large. So we're really hopeful that those come in. And then we heard today from Mr. Farrell that Rex Fortune has topped 100 students. So I think they're at 101 now.
Sweet. Congratulations.
So the students are continuing to come. We're excited about that. The daily attendance, we're still working on that. We look at the attendance regularly, trying to get our students who are chronic absentee students to come to school. And so Mr. Brassey has been leading that charge. The ADA goes down because we have that 3-year rolling average where we're protected from the declining enrollment, which has been up until this year. So we'll see our ADA go up in out years now. When I look at the revenue versus expenditures, we are deficit spending this year by $4.4 million, but the next slide will show why we're doing that. We're spending down our one-time funds that we had in our little savings account, we'll call it. The out years are more important because I only look at revenue versus ongoing expenditures. And we have a surplus of about $800,000 there. And then the year following, we have a deficit of about $600,000. That's within a margin of error where I'm not too concerned about our spending. We're pretty much even. At first interim, it was a little bit different. We have $500,000 more spending this year because we're spending one-time funds, which will be the next slide. And then next year, we have a greater surplus. It was going to be a negative at first interim, I projected, but now it's up to $800,000. And that is because we received home-to-school transportation funds, and that's about $1 million. Also, we had a 5.38% COLA increase that was projected for first interim, and that has been increased to 8.13% COLA. Now it's second interim. We have to watch that because the Legislative Analyst Office says the state can only afford a 6.4% COLA. So they'll be battling out how much of a COLA, and that's cost of living increase, which doesn't mean cost of our living, it's the cost of doing business. And then the out year, in 24-25, our demographer changed the projection of our students, and so that changed our revenue significantly. So I'll be watching that. That's the third year out. We have time to see how accurate our demographer is. The one-time expenditures that I mentioned was the $2 million that we negotiated for the salary bonus. It differed by the unions, but it was about $2 million total of one-time expenditures. And then the $2 million of one-time expenditures for the board committed maintenance funds. We had $700,000 site discretionary funds, and all the sites and departments received $25,000 to $75,000 just for facility needs. So in the business office, we are redoing the flooring, the carpet, and painting. So we tried to focus on needs for the facilities that you just don't get money for regularly. And that totaled about $700,000. And then other maintenance and technology was about another $200,000, $300,000. So that's where we get that negative spending, but these are one-time expenditures, so it won't be negative in future years.
Lisa, in regards to one-time expenditures, the monies don't expire. So, for instance, if they said, for instance, expires by May 2024, and if you don't use it, you lose it. Is that right or no?
That's correct. This is from general fund money, so
Okay.
that does not expire.
Good, thank you.
So when we look at our ending fund balance, because the board increased our reserve from 3% to 6%, that brings our unappropriated ending fund balance lower than in previous years. But we still have a healthy surplus of $2.2 million. I can't tell because my glasses, contacts, don't read that. It's too small. But there is a healthy surplus each year that we can still draw on. And then I just included a slide of the board committed funds so that you can see how we're doing on the spending of the funds that you set aside. The carryover for unspent school site funds, so last year they didn't spend all their money, that carries over to this year. That has all been given to them, so the balance on that is zero. The supplemental concentration grant funds, we have not used any of those yet. The balance remains what was carried over, and now those funds are going to be used for the pandemic relief positions that we added. That'll get us through next year. The HVAC upgrades, fencing, general maintenance, the $2 million, we have spent about $1 million at that, so there's about $1 million left. When I'm looking at the projection for 3 years out, or this year and 2 years out, I had a great concern of special education. It went up about $3.6 million over last year, and that is a trend that just can't continue. Our revenue only went up $460,000. So I brought this information to Mr. Jordan out of concern because, as you saw, our surplus was only $800,000 next year. So we can't add on another $3.6 million next year, or we won't have the funds to pay for it. So Mr. Jordan took that seriously immediately and went and met with all the school sites and their special education departments and the preschool program, and brainstormed ways that they can reduce the cost while still meeting the needs of our special education program. And so I'm proud of him for doing that. And I think, how many aides have you cut? And I want to talk about that in a minute, but do you have an idea?
These will be contracted.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I was going to say that.
30 and another 8, so 38 total.
And these are not our employees. I know
Yeah.
that that was a concern that came up out there in the district. These are contracted employees. We have open positions. We want people to apply, and then we don't need to use these other agencies that cost a lot of money. So thank you to Mr. Jordan for helping our budget. Fund 20, we still have our OPEB, other post-employment benefits for retirement that we are putting money into the trust. I haven't done that this year yet, but I will do that before the year ends. We have $445,000 in Fund 20 to go in the trust, and we have $1.4 million in the trust right now. Our liability by the actuary company was $5.2 million. So looking ahead, we want to look at the governor's revision in May. He could revise this current year still. He took away some of the art, music, and discretionary funding because that art, music proposition passed in the state. The voters approved it. So they're kind of battling that out. Does he have the right to take back that money now or not? So I'm interested to see how that plays out. We're watching special education and seeing how the costs come down, the ongoing cost. Of course, watching the attendance rate and enrollment and new construction in the homes because that brings in enrollment, and just watching the economy in general. So I have to say that the district's still in great shape. We're hanging in there. I appreciate the unions. I know they are anticipating, I thought they would be here, they're anticipating, a salary increase. Sorry, that's getting me. All of the special education increase, that $3.6 million, equals a 9.47% salary increase. So that was lost by increasing the special education cost. So if we can bring that down, then maybe we can talk about a salary increase. Also, that is 68% of our COVID position costs. That's 51 FTE, 3/4 of the year. That's the cost of what the special education would equal. So we want to bring those costs down so we can keep people, pay them what they deserve, etc. So that's mainly what I'm watching right now.
So that's just not the contracted individuals, that's all of special education?
It's all of special education, but the contracted individuals is what has made that amount go up so much significantly.
Understand. Is there any public comment before you go? Yes, yes.
So the question I do have about special education is, I know you said about 30 contracted, outsourced contracted were cut. Now we know that immediately affects the students that do need aids. So how many positions does the board, the center, have that are not outsourced available to cover some of those 30? Is it, we have 30 positions to cover those, or is it just 15? How many positions are you guys looking to fill right now?
That might be,
I'll let Mr. Jordan, who's the director of special ed.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID,
Mr. Jordan, will you go to this podium, please? That's okay, Lisa.
Pre-COVID, we averaged about 72 we call it aides, ISPH is instructional assistants. We ballooned up over in the last year and a half to over 140. So what we're trying to get, we're never going to get back down to, I'm not going to say never. It's unlikely we're going to get back down to 72, but closer to that. So we looked at how we can revise what we're doing in our programs that would cut cost. And that's what we are doing without hurting the kids, obviously, as little impact as possible. but just revising how we are providing services at the elementary and preschool level and the secondary level.
I know, it was bugging me a minute ago.
For the record, that was Doug Huey. Doug Huey.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's what we're doing. That's how we do that. The contract workers, great people, incredibly expensive. So we can cut 38 contract workers. That brings our costs significantly down. And I want to stress, none of our Center Unified School employees does that count. It's all contract.
So my question is, how many positions are currently open within center? Because I just said there was some positions open to fill for aides within center. That would be center employees. How many positions are you able to fill, like hoping to fill? Like you guys need contracted.
How many will remain contract? Is that what you're?
We would want to
No,
to
no.
replace some of the outsourced aides that have left, because I don't know how that helps, works with the students. I don't know if they've lost their aide or you're doubling up or anything like that, but are we looking to replace that with center employees?
We would love to replace all contract workers immediately with Center.
And what's that number? Are we only gonna cover some of those? Are we hoping to fill some of those positions, or all 30 to 38 or however many?
The 38 that we're talking about are positions that are no longer needed with our restructuring of the programs.
Okay.
So we'd still have 102 or whatever still employed.
Thank you.
I'm hoping none will be contracted. But if we're looking at right now, there's still about 15 of those that will be contracted.
So at this point, you just think people that are want to be center employees, center employees.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do you want a job? Do you have any friends that want a job?
Dear friend.
Before Mr. Jordan sits down.
Yeah, Mr. Jordan?
COVID money?
Excuse me, Mr. Jordan's not on the agenda. Is it regarding the budget?
As it relates to the subject matter, yes.
The budget?
Yes.
Okay.
So, it's all about the money. So I was in a meeting at Center High School, and we had the opportunity to stop and look at the special needs classroom there. And Superintendent Lair explained to me what I saw on the board relates to cost. And so in one of my board reports, I exclaimed that this to me was very important and I think very serious. And so I only asked that if we can think outside the box, maybe look at somewhere else. Where there's funds. There's always funds for those projects that people who make things happen. So maybe think a little bit out of the box. Maybe look at some different things, different areas, different people, anything, because I see that as a huge problem. When I don't know what the percent increase is, but it's pretty significant. And if the funds aren't there, and then we're on a double-edged sword, now we're with our contract, we're also spending more because those contracts are very expensive. So maybe we can do something different. I don't know if we can do that, but I really like to see for all of us to look at that.
Yeah, and please know we're looking at everything. When Lisa showed me the numbers, I thought I had a heart attack. That is a significant 3.6 million over a couple of years. That's a big chunk of change. Some of it, a lot of it is contract workers. Some of it we've had to do contract out for some transportation stuff. We're looking at how can we get away from that. We do have more kids in non-publics, and those are expensive, but they're necessary. So there's some areas we can cut and still provide great services, and others that by law we can't.
Okay, we got lots and lots and lots of COVID money to be used, and different areas, different pots.
We got to get back to the topic of the budget, but
Well, this is budget.
that,
There's no more COVID.
no.
I just wondered if any of it was used in special ed that could cover some of that, or if,
Okay,
Did we finish public comments?
yeah. No, just Ms. Sam's saying, I'm trying. Is there any other public comments from the audience or anything online? Okay. And so, Mr. Bruno, did you have a comment? I think Mrs. Anderson?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I don't. Mr. Mason? Thank you, Miss Lisa. That was very enlightening.
You have to vote on it.
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll do that right now.
Okay.
Yes, you would appreciate that. So do I have a motion to approve business item I, 2223, second interim?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. General consent.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and
Aye.
advisory vote. Thank you. Thank you. It passed, Lisa. Student representative report, Riley Mason.
In the past month, we've had our Glow in the Dark rally. We had our first multicultural night, our second annual talent show hosted by the class of 25. And then this past week, we had Breaking Down the Walls on Thursday and Friday, where about 300 students, 15 staff participated. And speaking of Mr. Huey and Miss Bowler put it together, so I want to say thank you to them. And just all around on campus, even this week, the vibe kind of on campus has been better. Our spring blood drive happens tomorrow. Tomorrow, the seniors have an assembly to aid them in transitioning from high school life to adult life. Tomorrow, baseball has a doubleheader against Sutter starting at 1 because all the games this week have been postponed. Tennis is at Lyndhurst as well tomorrow. Track is at Yuba College. And then on Friday, softball is at Sutter. And then we're piloting this new online ticket sales for our volleyball games, and then we're hoping to implement them to other, like the football games later, and then basketball games.
Could you do the ticket sales for like prom and other center events, or is it just athletic?
Just athletics. Yeah,
Very
potentially.
cool.
Next week, golf is at Cherry Island on the 21st and 23rd. And then on the 24th, swim is at Bear River. On the 29th, we have a staff versus students basketball game during both lunches. Our spring drama production is being held on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, and then on those weekdays, Thursday and Friday, 7 to 9, and then on the 25th, 2 to 4. And then that is recommended for a more mature audience. And then the week we come back from spring break, we have our rally on the 14th, and then prom is on the 15th. And for the two people here, students here, make sure to buy your prom tickets. Tickets end on the 24th. And then that's it.
The 29th of April is the staff versus student?
Correct.
April. At
During
lunch.
Both lunches, yeah.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Mason?
No.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, let's go, Mr. Bruno. Do you have a board report this evening?
Yes, this month I got to participate in a meeting with technology department and learned quite a bit. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay for the whole meeting, but I found it very informative, and I look forward to doing that again. Also, I got to participate in Read Across America at Dudley. Actually, my wife and I both participated. She was reading her book and brought our pet pigeon to show the students, which ties into the book. We had a great time. Everyone was very welcoming and delighted to see us, except the class that I went to that thought they were going to get the pigeon, so they were a little disappointed that they only got me.
They only got you.
Yeah. I was reading Dr. Seuss's Fox and Socks, which is very challenging to read because it's full of tongue twisters, but I really enjoy it. And I got great feedback, ranging from a student giving me a hug, another student telling me I was a pro, to a student in the middle of me reading telling me that I was sweating, and a student raising her hand after I finished to provide the comment that she laughed 0 times. I just love the honesty. But we had a great time and really enjoyed doing that. The other thing I want to say is with the work we were doing in closed session, the work Trustee Ballin and I were doing on the board policy we're working on, and some of the things here, I like that we're finding ways to disagree and listen to each other and try to find common ground. And I think if we continue down this road, we can make really good progress on things. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And that's my board report.
A very nice board report. Mrs. Anderson.
I was able to go to Oak Hill in their pasta night and play bingo with them, and it was a lot of fun. And Mr. Ballin, of course, won the prizes. I didn't get to win. But they had a great time, and it was a very well-attended event, very well put together and organized. But I would encourage you to attend some of their events because they're a lot of fun. Also, Mr. Ballin and I attended a tour with Mr. Lair, and we went to Wilson Riles, McClellan, and Oak Hill. I have to say that every classroom we went into was extremely well behaved, extremely quiet and under control. The kids were focused on learning. The walls were decorated and very well designed and colorful, and kids' projects were great. I was just so impressed, as always, when I walk through our classrooms. They're very uplifting and spirited. I think every classroom we walked into had the character count words, the reminders of respect, and just so positive.
Very welcoming.
Reminding kids, what's important in life and how to behave, and it's just uplifting to go through our classrooms. I just love it. And I think Mr. Ballin had some insights too into what goes on and what you see in the classrooms. So it was fun. It was interesting. And that was about all I had really for this time around.
Awesome. Mr. Ballin?
Thank you, President Pope. So this month was probably the busiest I've had since taking office. I've had many opportunities to meet with faculty, staff, and students at a number of schools. I went to a number of several school after-school events. I have to say what this district does compared to when I went to elementary school, and even a generation later when my son attended in this district as well, is very impressive. So many extracurricular activities, and I've noticed in this district ongoing every week, almost daily. The schools and the PTAs and the PTOs with their outstanding programs show why this is such an exemplary school district. So some of the events that I attended on Friday, February 17th, I had the opportunity to meet with the district's technology director, Eugene Grand, Superintendent Lair, Director of Facilities, Richard Putnam, as well as board member Steve Bruno, as he mentioned momentarily ago, as it related to the district's technology and information security of this district. I was very impressed with Mr. Graham's presentation and feel very confident that the district is in very capable hands as it relates to information technology and security within our district. On Friday, March 3rd, I attended, the next item was on Saturday, the 25th. I forgot which agenda item. I attended the SCOE, the Sacramento County Office of Education, hearing relating to the territory transfer petition of Spire Solaire that we spoke to earlier with Superintendent Lair and also President Pope. On Friday the 3rd, I attended Oak Hill Elementary School pasta dinner and bingo fundraiser along with School Board Member Anderson, as she mentioned, and what a fun way to bring students, their families, teachers, and friends all together. I believe it is very worthwhile to gather events such as this. I think it does a lot for the kids. On Monday, March 6th, accompanied by President Delray Pope, I attended the St. Baldrick's fundraiser at Spinelli Elementary. This event, which raises funds for childhood cancers, was fun and entertaining. And what an outstanding way to help those in need by such a young group of students. I'm not sure what the youngest ones, but they were very early on in elementary school. They're all to be commended. For those that you don't know, they got their heads shaved in order to raise funds for those kids that have cancer. So very solemn and sincere thank you to those that participated. On Tuesday, March 7th, I attended Spinelli Elementary School Multicultural Fair. It was very impressive, and the food samplings provided were awesome. As I didn't have lunch that day, the timing of this event was perfect, so I didn't go hungry until dinner. It was really quite a showing of different cultures by students, their families, and the volunteers that assisted. On Wednesday, March 8th, along with President Delray Pope, I attended two events, the North Country Family Math Night and the Center High Electives Night and Multicultural Fair. Many thanks to the faculty, staff, and students that helped with these events and made them the success that they were. I had a great time, and I remember how much of basic math I've forgotten. And the event at Center High was so crowded with great turnout, you could hardly move about. And I thoroughly enjoyed the showing off of the robotics, the robots moving through the crowd. It was quite fun to watch people getting out of the way. On Friday, March 10th, I had the opportunity, along with Board Member Nancy Anderson, to visit and tour Oak Hill Elementary School, Wilson Riles Junior High, and McClellan High School. Many thanks to Principals Allison Kent, Erica Olmstead, and David French for their warm welcomes and devotion of their time to showing us around. Also, on March 10th, I had the opportunity to speak with the district's school resource officer, Officer Ahmed. After our board meeting in December, in where Officer Ahmed and Twin Rivers Unified School District Police Department Lieutenant Kokier spoke, Officer Ahmed has been visiting on average 1 hour a day our elementary schools. I'd like to thank Officer Ahmed for taking the initiative to show a law enforcement presence to our elementary school students, faculty, and staff after some concern was expressed that our elementary and junior high schools were not being watched over as much as some believe they should be. Also, it is important that all our district students, faculty, and staff come to know Officer Ahmed so that in an event he needs to preside over a crisis event, all know who he is and why he is present. Lastly, I'd like to report that on Monday, February 27th, I received an email from Superintendent Lair that had been sent to him by High School Principal Ferguson from the Center High School Chapter of Future Business Leaders of America, also called FBLA, pertaining to the Northern Section Leadership Conference, in where our chapter placed 5th in the Northern Section Sweepstakes competition, with 11 of our competitors becoming award recipients by placing within the top 10 of their events. Congratulations to those FBLA members for this outstanding success and achievement, and best of luck to those 6 members that were chosen and will advance to the State Leadership Conference. In closing, as I have said in previous meetings, and I will say at each meeting, I want everyone that watches this board meeting live or recorded know that you are more than welcome to come attend these meetings in person, and I know all the rest of the board would be in agreement with this as well. Your presence would be welcomed by the board and district staff, and should you wish to provide any input you feel would be helpful and beneficial to the board, the district, our schools, or our students would also be welcome. Additionally, please know that we would appreciate any comments on any of the district's social media platforms, such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Remember, it is you, the parents and guardians of our student, that have the strongest voice in how your children are educated, and your voice is always welcome here. This completes my report for March of 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. Superintendent Lair, are you available?
You betcha. So I just wanted to tag on. I think most people ended up sharing some of the different events that we went to. But I think what makes the events and also the school tours so positive is not only the staff for the work that they do each and every day, but also our families. We've really worked after coming out of COVID to re-engage and get back to some of the things that we missed over the few years that we were dealing with the COVID crisis. And I just want to say it's impressive to see there's so many events you can't hardly go to them. And for such a district our size, that's pretty impressive. Additionally, I just wanted to give a thank you to Ann Lyons for all that she's done. She has assisted thousands of students over the years, probably hundreds of staff members and other adults, but Ann will be greatly missed, but we're really happy for her. She called me, a very classy move, called me, said she had to come I had to come meet with her because she wanted to tell me in person that she would be retiring at the end of the year. Of course, we're happy for her, but we're very sad to see her go. The couple other quick things before I close was just a reminder that the board candidate seats, we have a vacancy. It closes on Friday. So if someone's interested in joining the board, please put in your paperwork. Next, the board and I've been sharing with folks about our logos. We're looking at rebranding and updating our logos. I'm hoping Friday to board members, I'll be able to share some preliminary logos with you. I think Ms. Coronado and I got a sneak peek this morning of those. I think you'll find them to be pretty good. And then finally, I just want to say one thing I think that's special about our district continues to be how we work together. We work with each other. When people have things going on, we all pull together no matter what it is. I would like to thank Carol for her continued support with me being in and out lately. She's been great. She's probably tired of my texts, tired of my phone calls, but I just appreciate all that she does. And that's just one example of what people do for each other when we need to pull together. So thank you, Carol. Thanks, everyone. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lair, and please feel better soon. And for myself, I would like to also say congratulations to the FBLA on their successes. So I'm anxious to see what comes about on April 27th after their conference. I too attended the Sacramento County Committee land transfer on the 25th, and it was very similar as to the SCOE committee meeting. Mr. Lair gave his presentation on the opposition of the transfer, and then hoping that the two committees deny. So that hope that goes in our favor. March 2nd, I too read at Dudley Elementary for Reading Across America. I read The Giving Tree by Shal Silverstein for Miss Dobson's third grade class. Mr. Bruno is correct. Those kids are really cute and they say what they mean. I read, oh God, what did I read? I'm sorry. The Giving Tree, as I said. And it was an amazing book. And then after that, I read a poem called Chicken Lips. And Chicken Lips was a poem that was introduced to my children in third grade by their third grade teacher at Oak Hill, Mr. Dan Stolfus. And I was watching the expressions on their face, and one of the children said, "Oh, Mrs. Pope, that's so gross," as my children said. So I'd like to say thank you to Dan Stolfus for introducing that to my family, and we still talk about that poem today. But as students say the darndest things, actually, I asked the students, what does a dragon say? And they look at me, and one little fella says, "You said dragon." No, "You said dragon." And I went, "Yes, what does a dragon say?" "It's dragon." And I said, "That's what I said." "No, you said dragon." And I went, "Oh, let me tell you where I'm from. I'm from North Dakota, and sometimes we say our vowels incorrectly. So yes, it was so cute. The kids were tentative. They were lovely. They're just a great joy. So thank you, Dudley and Mrs. Mason, for including the board to Read Across America. And please, let's do this again next year because it was truly a blast. March 6th was St. Baldrick's, as Mr. Ballin said, and Jean Luigi organized this for 10 years. Within the 10 years, they shaved 288 heads and raised over $100,000. So congratulations, Ms. Luigi. Unfortunately, this might be her last year, so hopefully they can, last year doing the St. Baldrick's, so I hope somebody else will continue that spirit within that school. On the 7th, I did attend the multicultural night at Spaghetti. Great food, great display tables. There was dancing, outdoor activities. Unfortunately for the rain, the dancing horses didn't come, but hopefully next year we can do that. And I just want to say thanks to Mrs. Amanda Alden. She did a great job, so let's continue that practice as well. I know it stopped during COVID, so there you are, darn COVID, but we're done with it hopefully. Same on the 7th, I attended the facilities meeting, and I did run solo. Nobody else showed up, so I got a private tour, so thank you, Mr. Putnam. On the 8th was Family Math Night at North Country, their very first. And for their very first event, it was well attended. It was great fun, and yeah, Mr. Ballin and I don't want to talk about our math skills. That was kind of embarrassing. We did tour the Center High School Electives Fair and their multicultural night. The booths they had there was the Center High Booster Clubs, the MCA Athletics, including cheer, BSU was there. Bible Club, Dear Asian Youth Club, Best Buddies, Engineering and Robotics, Hispanic Youth Leadership Club, Key Club, along with Science, Social Studies, Arts, Math, and English. And as well, as Mr. Ballin had said, you better careful when you're walking around that cafeteria because you might get a robot in the ankle. But they were so cool. So our engineering and robotics team have been very busy. And then one thing that I wanted to bring attention to is our art department. I stopped by the art table, and the amazing art that was displayed on Mr. Asbury's booth was amazing. And there was a young lady from BSU, I believe, who's also an artist, and she does have her paintings for sale. I don't remember her name. Gracie? Gracie, she showed me her art, two excellent paintings. So if you are interested in any paintings from Gracie or want to see them, I'm sure somebody from BSU, you can contact them and look at them, because we have some amazing talent. Between Center High School's talent that I saw the other night, and then McClellan's that I saw early in the year, congratulations students, they're amazing. And then Mr. Putnam has been busy. If you drive around our district office, you may have noticed this brand new sign. So thank you, Mr. Putnam. It's amazing, replacing the old one. And I believe it's going to be illuminated with lights sometime soon, right? Yes. That's cool. So thank you for doing that. And then a big shout out to Sarah Wildman. She has been working on our district Google Calendar, and I was flipping through it the other day, and I went, oh my God, these events are on the calendar. I don't have to go to each site. So thank you, Sarah, because that's a huge, huge win for us. So if you want to know what events are going on in our district, board members and Mr. Mason, they're right on our district Google Calendar, and I'll show you the time and date and other information. Really? So thank you, Sarah. That's quite wonderful. It is wonderful. I know Mrs. Hunt has been trying to get that information. So Sarah has completed that. So that's awesome. So thank you, everybody. Then continuing on with the meeting, and if you can imagine, shoot, it's 8 o'clock almost. I was going to be done by 7:30. I'm sorry, I rambled. Advanced planning, future meeting date, right here, April 19th. In the annex, is there a suggested business item, a suggested agenda item? I know we're going to talk about the facility naming of the CTE buildings. I believe Mr. Lair suggested in April. And is there any others?
I do.
Yes, sir.
As I expressed in previous meetings, that a number of things had come to my attention while I campaigned for the seat. I'd like to bring one of those items forward. I did a little research and reading on it, and apparently what I learned campaigning coincides with what I researched online. Board meetings are about conducting the business of the district. But it's also supposed to be a recognition and a realization of why we're here, and that's the education of our students. What has been brought to my attention and what I also researched is, with the exception of our wonderful student member, Mason, and we don't have, and the occasional, when it's agendized, presentation by students, we have no feedback from our students. No, we don't, there's no recognition of the things that they're accomplishing. We're here to ensure that student achievement is at the most that we can possibly provide for them. And we should be recognizing that on a regular basis. So I would like to propose for discussion that at the next meeting that we take some time during our board meetings to recognize our students, what they've achieved, the different clubs, the different singular academic achievements and things of that nature. Maybe take a 15-minute block of each board meeting, or carve out a part of the time or something along those lines. So discussion around that subject matter is what I am proposing.
We actually did that before COVID. We just hadn't really started it back up again.
Well, Mr. Laird does talk to the administrators, and they do give us their board report. I think it's quarterly. Is that correct, administrators? Quarterly. And so on a quarterly basis, which I don't think you've been here yet for one, yes, you have actually. The administrators do give us some input on what's going on in their school site and what clubs is what's going on. And so we do get that on a quarterly basis.
Okay, so I get that, but where the actual students can come, and for those that don't typically would come here, would be able to give a presentation, or we would do some kind of recognition of the achievements of what they did, either individually or as groups,
We would have
or
teams come in
organizations.
and recognize them, or would have students come in and recognize like the honor roll, things like that. Remember? Before COVID, that's a long time ago. But yeah,
Okay.
we'd recognize students.
So,
So, Ms. Pope, what I would say is, what I'm hearing is we'll put an item on to discuss ways to bring back some of those things and identify. So I've heard a couple good brainstorms. So we'll put a discussion item on to see how we can continue to publicize or share or bring students in. That's a great idea. We can get back to that.
I think what you were looking for is stuff to talk about at the next meeting. So we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting to talk about?
that's what we just said, yeah,
Is
we'll
that
do a
what-
discussion item, yep. Okay, the board will not reconvene in closed session, so at this time, 7:49, we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.